This is Bethlee and she will do the barbell back squat. The starting position for this exercise is with feet parallel with the hips. She has to keep the spine in a neutral position with the bar in contact with her trapezius. So in order to perform the exercise, she has to flex her hips and keep the 3 points of contact aligned. So back of skull, middle back, and tailbone. Always looking front, never down. And her knee joints should never pass from the toes. Yeah, let's go. So in the lowering phase, the isotonic contraction is eccentric and she is inhaling. Her hip joints are changing angle once they're flexing. Her primary muscle mover, the primary muscle mover is the gluteus maximus. Still in the lowering phase, her knee joints are also changing angle and also performing flexion. Their primary muscle mover are the quad muscles. And in the lifting phase, the type of isotonic contraction is concentric, as she is working against the gravity, and she has to exhale. Her hip joints are now changing angle to extension, but the primary muscle mover is still the gluteus maximus. Her knee joints are also changing angle to extension, and the primary muscle mover are still the quadriceps muscles. Okay, so now Bethlee is ready to perform her second exercise, which is barbell front squat. The starting position for this exercise is with feet parallel with the hips. She has to keep the spine in a neutral position as well with the bar, or keep it in contact with her anterior deltoids. And the elbows are flexed and parallel with shoulders, facing the ceiling,
the bar must
but
be in
she
contact
also
with
has the option to hug the bar,
depending the grip,
as
and
if she
the elbows
feels
are
more
flexed
comfortable. She has the red
with
band,
shoulders.
the red elastic between her knees because she was buckling a little bit before,
because she was buckling
when she was trying to perform the exercise.
So now, yeah, you can
So to do it, she
you're
has
ready.
to flex her hips and keep the 3 points of contact aligned.
So to perform this
always
exercise,
looking front, never down.
she has to
and her
flex her
knee
hips
joints
and keep
should
the
never
3
pass
points
from
of contact
the
aligned.
toes. So
Tailbone,
here in the lowering phase, in the lowering phase,
and back of skull.
the isotonic contraction
Always looking front and never down.
is
And her knee joints
eccentric,
should never pass the front
and
of
she is
toes.
inhaling. Her hip joints
we
are
can
changing
see
angle once they are
From this
flexing.
side,
The
that she's
primary
not
muscle mover
passing.
is the gluteus
Her knee
maximus,
joints are not passing from her
and
toes.
still in the lowering phase, her knee joints
In
are
the lowering
also
phase,
changing
the
angle
isotonic contraction
and
is
also performing
eccentric,
flexion.
and she's
Their
inhaling.
primary muscle
Her
mover
hip
are
joints
the
are
quad
changing
muscles.
angles. Once they are
In the
flexing,
lifting
the
phase,
primary muscle
the type of
mover is the
isotonic
gluteus
contraction is
maximus.
concentric
Still in the
as
lowering
she's
phase,
working
her knee
against
joints
gravity.
are also changing
So
angle
she has
and
to
also performing
exhale.
flexion.
Her
Their
hip
primary
joints are
muscle
now
mover
changing
are the
angle
quad
to
muscles.
extension, but the primary muscle mover is still the gluteus
And back
maximus.
in the view,
Her
back
knee
in the posterior
joints
view,
are also changing
the
angle
lifting
to
phase,
extension, and the
the
primary
type
muscle
of
mover
isotonic
are still the
contraction
quad
is concentric.
muscles. Now Bethlee is ready to perform one arm row in her right side. So the start position for the exercise is with one knee flexed on the bench, and the other leg is on the floor. The spine is nice and straight and aligned with the neck. She already has the dumbbell in the same side of the leg that is not in contact with the bench. So she's bending her elbow higher than the shoulder line, and elbow should basically point towards the ceiling. In the lifting phase, the type of isotonic contraction is concentric, and she should exhale. Her shoulder joint is changing angle to flexion, and the primary muscle mover is the deltoid. Her elbow joint is also changing flexion and is changing angle to flexion, and the primary muscle mover is the biceps. From this side, the lowering phase, the type of isotonic contraction is eccentric, and she should inhale. Her shoulder joint is changing angle to extension, and the primary muscle mover is still the deltoid. Her elbow joint is now changing angle to extension, and the primary muscle mover is the biceps. Alright. So here's Bethlee ready to perform the barbell bench press. The starting position for the exercise is laying down in the bench, with both feet in the floor. The bar is in the rack, and she should be under the bar in the same direction of her eyes. And as she brings down the bar to the chest, she has to aim for the nipple line. So, yep, she's right under the bar. And in the lowering phase, the type of isometric contraction will be eccentric. So you can start performing. Yep, she is inhaling. The elbow joints are changing angle to flexion, and primary muscle mover is the triceps. The shoulder joints are abducting, and primary muscle mover is the pectoralis major. In the lifting phase, the contraction is concentric, and she is exhaling. Elbow joints are extending, and primary muscle mover is the triceps. Shoulder joints, they are adducting, and primary muscle mover is the pectoralis major. So right now, Bethlee, she is performing the chest flies. The starting position for this exercise, she is laying down in the bench with feet on the floor. She will grab one dumbbell on each hand, and as she lifts, she fully extends her both arms towards the ceiling. They are parallel with the nipple line, and the idea is not to touch the dumbbells on each other, so she won't be in a rest position. As she goes down, she will bring both arms down, and as she flexes her both elbows simultaneously, so they will be a little bit down of her shoulder level. Yeah, now we can notice that they're a little bit above her below her shoulder level. In the lowering phase, the type of isometric contraction is eccentric, as she has to inhale. The elbow joints are changing angle to flexion, and the primary muscle mover are the triceps. The shoulder joints are performing abduction, and the primary muscle mover is the pectoralis major. In the lifting phase, the type of isometric contraction is concentric, as she has to exhale. The elbow joints are changing angle to extension, and the primary muscle mover is the triceps. The shoulder joints are performing abduction, and the primary muscle mover is the pectoralis major. Yeah, you can start. So now Bethlee is already performing RDL, Romanian deadlift. The starting position for the exercise is with feet apart from shoulder width, chest forward, and back nice and straight. The barbell starts in the rack. And she always have to look in front, never look down, because it will make her change her posture. And she has to keep the bar close to her shin and pretend she's painting it. As she is in the lifting phase, the isotonic contraction is concentric, and she has to exhale. The hip joints are extending, and primary muscle mover is the gluteus maximus. The knee joints are also changing angle and extending. Primary muscle mover is the quad muscles. As she's going down in the lowering phase, the isotonic contraction is eccentric, and she has to inhale. The hip joints are changing angle to flexion. Primary muscle mover is the gluteus maximus, and the knee joints are flexing, and primary muscle mover of the knee joints are the quad muscles. Yeah, keep it going. Nice. Right now, Bethlee is ready to perform split squats, her last exercise. She has the right foot in front and the left foot in the back. The starting position of the exercise is 1 foot in front of the other, but far apart in a 90-degree angles. To perform the exercise, she has to flex her hips and keep the 3 points of contact aligned. Always look in front, never look down. And her knee joints should never pass from the toes, and feet should never be in the same line as she was in a rope. As she has the right leg in front, in the lowering phase, the isotonic contraction is eccentric and she is inhaling. In the right leg, her knee is changing angle to flexion, and the same happens in the left leg. They both have the quad muscles as primary muscle mover. Only the hip joint of the right leg is changing angle to flexion, and primary muscle mover is the gluteus maximus in the right leg. In the lifting phase, the type of isotonic contraction is concentric and she is inhaling. In the right leg, her knee is changing angle to extension. And the same happens in the left leg. They both are having the quad muscles as primary muscle mover. And only the hip joint of the right leg is changing angle to extension, and primary muscle mover is the gluteus maximus of the right leg.
Okay, here we have Andre, and Andre will be forming the box squats. As Andre lowers, his hips and knees goes into flexion, and in his lowering phase, he is eccentrically contracting, and he inhales as he lowers. In his lifting phase, Andre is extending both his hips and his knee joints, and in the lifting phase, we're in concentric contraction, and he will exhale. The primary muscle movers of his hip joints are the gluteus maximus, and primary muscle movers of his knee joints would be his quads. Yeah, you can go. Okay, Andre is now performing deadlifts. His primary muscle movers would be his glute max and his quad muscles. In the lowering phase, his hip and knee joints. In the lowering phase, in the lowering phase, his hip and knee joints are flexing. So his glutes and quads are working. He is eccentrically contracting on the lowering phase, so he will inhale. On the lifting phase, his hip and knee joints extend. This is concentrically contracting, and he exhale. And again, his primary muscle movers are his glute maximus for his hip joints and his quad muscles for his knee joints. Go ahead. Okay, so Andre is now performing bent over barbell rows. As you can see, his knee and his hips are not actually important right now, but the important joints that are moving are his shoulder and elbow joints. In his lowering phase, which is eccentric, he will inhale. His shoulders are performing adduction and his elbows are performing extension. In his lifting phase, his shoulders perform abduction and his elbows perform flexion. In the lifting phase, this is concentrically done and he exhales. As you can see, his spine is aligned properly how we need it to be. Okay. This Andre is now performing pull-ups. He is in a pronated grip and he is also in a wide grip, so therefore his pull-ups in his lifting phase, his shoulders, which is a joint that is moving, is performing adduction and his elbows are performing flexion. In his lowering phase, his shoulders are performing abduction and his elbows are performing extension. As Andre lifts his body, he's performing concentric contraction and he exhales. As he lowers his body, he performs eccentric contraction and he inhales. His primary muscle movers are his triceps for his elbows and his latissimus dorsi for his shoulder. Okay, Andre is now going to perform chin-ups. His primary muscles that are moving are his triceps and his latissimus dorsi. His triceps are assisting his elbow joints and his latissimus dorsi are assisting his shoulder joints. He is in a supinated grip. In his lifting phase, his shoulders are flexing as well as his elbows, and he is concentrically moving, so he will be exhaling. In his lowering phase, his shoulders and his elbows are extending, and he is eccentrically contracting, and he will inhale in his lowering phase. Okay, Andre is now performing his glute ham raises. In this exercise, his main joint that is moving is his knee joint. This is a single joint exercise. In his lowering phase, his knee joint extends and he eccentrically inhales. In his lifting phase, his knee joint flexes and he concentrically exhales. His primary muscle movers are his hamstrings. Okay, Andre is now performing his final exercise, which is the horizontal row. As you can see, his legs are heightened with a bench, and on his lifting phase, his shoulders are adducting and his elbows are flexing, and he is concentrically contracting, and he will exhale. On his lowering phase, his shoulders are adducting, and his elbows are extending. He is eccentrically contracting on his lowering phase, and he inhales. His primary muscles are his deltoids for his shoulders and his biceps for his elbows. Good.